Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. It is that time of the month where I bring you my monthly wish list for the upcoming update. Now, does that necessarily mean we are definitely going to get an update? No. Now, I will kind of talk about that a little bit later on. But in terms of, my wish list, it's usually something that I update monthly. It's kind of things that I think the game's missing or things that I'd kind of like to see brought into the game to make sure this becomes a much better product in the long term. I will also be doing my typical community one in the following days, so do let me know in the comments down below exactly what you want to see going forward from Gran Turismo 7 from the next update onwards, whether it's kind of a short-term fix or something long-term that you want to see them bring in. Now, before I actually dive into my wish list, there is something I do want to quickly touch on, and that is the rumours that people are saying, Polyphony's completely forgot about GT7, they're focusing on GT8 now, the game's completely done, like, it won't be updated again, as well as the whole monthly update thing. Now, I do kind of roll with it being a monthly update, in a light sense. I don't necessarily expect them to actually update the game every single month, and in terms of the overall shelf life of Gran Turismo since it kind of got released, apart from 2 months, this game has actually been updated every month, sometimes 2 months with kind of bug fixes and patches and a content update. So let's be honest, no, I wouldn't expect it every single month, and neither should you guys, considering it was actually never promised to be monthly. That is just the way it kind of rolls. And the other thing about the whole GT8 rumours, of Polyphony giving up on GT7, probably not. There's no real reason as to think why they'll just give up on GT7 at this point in its life cycle. Let's be honest, in the long-term scheme of things and how long these games usually get updated, it's around about halfway there or so, maybe a little bit more. And usually with Gran Turismo games, you will get a Spec 2 update, which is kind of like a entirely different version from what we saw on release, in a sense that it will sort of, get to a good point where the game's kind of really well padded out, there's plenty to do, and then it kind of goes into sort of Spec 2 because there is enough there to kind of justify it from being the Spec 1 that we saw on launch. So that doesn't necessarily mean that Polyphony aren't necessarily working on GTA. They probably are if there is going to be another Gran Turismo game. It just means that they won't entirely just shift their resources from one product to the other and completely abandon a game that, as much as we probably won't like to admit, still sells well and still makes them a lot of money. Plus, this is the flagship racing title for the Sony console. There is no reason for them to just turn around and completely abandon this product, at least yet. So just to clarify, updates aren't meant to be monthly. Just because they usually fall on that way, don't go ahead and expect one every single month. Whilst, yes, sometimes it works that way, sometimes it doesn't. And especially as GT7 gets older, don't expect it to always be like that. And in terms of them just kind of entirely shifting their focus to GT8, don't buy into that. In all honesty, it wouldn't be a decent business plan whilst this game is still relatively fresh in the long-term, scheme of a business. So I just kind of wanted to clear that up before we kind of got into my wish list, that people will just think of stuff in their head, come out with it, and then try and run with that as gospel. Yeah, just don't buy into it, to be honest. There's no evidence backing up either two of those points. Now let's actually get into my wish list, and I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room, a new track. Now this, I do agree that we are definitely needing a new track at this point. Does that mean that Gran Turismo 7 doesn't have a very kind of varied and wide track selection? Of course not. It does have a lot of tracks in there for a racing title. I guess in a way we can just look at the latest Forza to realise that there's only 20 tracks in there, when this game I think had something like 36 on release. And obviously, whilst it hasn't grown in the way we'd probably want it to, it certainly did have a decent amount out of the box. But again, like I said, look, this game's kind of 18 months down the line. We've had all of the stuff they've been working on since GT Sport and the likes of Watkins Glen. Again, those tracks, yes, they probably take a long while to make. Like I said, if you kind of look back at Watkins Glen, it was being made during GT Sports life cycle, but I do feel we are definitely in need of a new track at this point. We've seen layouts in between, mainly the likes of the Nürburgring layouts, but again, we haven't seen any of those for a few months, so I think it definitely at this point, and kind of if they want to get people back to this game, bringing a new track there will always bring people back. People want to try out the tracks in this game. People actually like the way that Polyphony go about making the tracks. In terms of the tracks themselves, they are highly detailed and great places to just drive around. So yes, a new track is definitely needed. I do agree with the general I guess population of this game that a track is definitely needed. So fully agree there. Now let's quickly move into number 2, because again, this is something that I definitely feel is needed, and again, it's something that people have been crying out to Polyphony for the longest time. That is proper events and more of them. Yes, we kind of get on average from 3 to 5 events per update. Most of them are terrible, and usually the one decent one we have isn't even scaled correctly in terms of its payout. I did mention about the high speed ring new event recently. That was absolutely fantastic, but was completely let down by the payout, meaning that people will experience this insanely good event probably only once and then just never touch it again, because there's no realistic reward in the long term from actually going back and replaying that event. And this is something that Kaz did mention. He didn't want people replaying the same events over and over again, but that is kind of the case we've had. We've had 4 decent events that people will constantly refer to, that being Le Mans 700, Spa 800, Sardinia 800 and the Tokyo 600, and that is literally it. You don't really hear anyone talking about any other events within this game, and it is a massive shame. Now if we look back at GT Sport, and it is a game that I've kind of gone back to recently to kind of look at how well padded it was. By the time December rolled around and the game had only been out, I think, like a month or two, it already started to get the Gran Turismo League content in terms of, single player content. And it was quite a lot. If we look at that game by the end of its life cycle, there was plenty to do, and it was put in there at a much more, I guess, regular basis, and they seem to be putting it in a bigger amount each time, whereas Gran Turismo 7 just seems to be getting sort of drip fed these events, and most of them are just absolutely terrible. In GT Sport we got, say, 1 championship in, but that whole championship would have 8 events in it. You was going to 8 different tracks, even if it was just a one make. It was actually fantastic, and I do feel that Polyphony now more than ever need to get people back to this game by properly putting events in and focusing on them. Now it may be more difficult just due to the fact that the cafe menu works the way it does, but they've been kind of ignoring that system for what feels like forever at this point. We haven't really had a proper cafe menu really since the Super Formula update, so definitely they need to start maybe pulling back and going towards what they did with GT Sport by adding in the GT League. Maybe we'll have to wait for a Spec 2 update, maybe it'll never come, but in terms of overall events and quality of events, they really need to start putting their focus there, considering that only a small amount of the population of Gran Turismo actually play online, and that seems to be where their focus is in terms of what they post up on social media and stuff. Now I'm kind of going to counter that point in a sense by actually kind of focusing more towards the online players, but I guess in a sense you could also kind of cross this over with single player players as well. Race cars. Now this is a definite thing. Most of the models that we're seeing in the terms of Group 4 and Group 3 are massively outdated at this point, and that list needs a huge update. Not only that, it would just be nice to see more race cars in general put in this game. This is a racing game at the end of the day, and the whole kind of progression in terms of Gran Turismo has always been working from your road cars or your compact cars into your sports cars, into your supercars, and then getting into the race cars kind of at the sort of end game in the bigger events. And I do feel like this game is crying out for more not only up-to-date race cars, but some classic race cars as well. This series is very much famous for turning what would have been a regular race car into an absolute icon. Just look at the late 90s JGTC cars, the Tom Castrol Supras and stuff like that had kind of been in Gran Turismo and been shown to a Western audience that might not have even really known what this thing was without the help of this series. This series has always been fantastic at making race cars just legends by putting them in the game and making them their kind of their cover cars, intro cars, you know, the likes of Lister Storms as well. Seeing all these cars as a kid, and then all of a sudden as I'm older, I'm kind of remembering them and thinking, well, where did I first see it? Well, Gran Turismo. Why are they not taking advantage of that by putting many more racing cars in, and actually, you know, not only kind of padding out the end game, considering the actual end game part was a Group 3 championship, but also just kind of expanding their roster as well as updating it and possibly bringing out some classic race cars that people have absolutely fell in love with through this series over time. Now, this one might seem a little bit of a strange one, but I feel like a lot of people will agree with me here. A clean race bonus indicator. Sometimes a clean race bonus can be the most finicky thing that I've ever seen within a video game. It's ridiculous. Some events you can clatter the AI, as long as you don't go ahead and get a yellow flag penalty, then you'll keep your clean race bonus. In other events, you just touch the grass and it's completely wiped out. It would be great to just have a little bonus or a little thing that just kind of pops up on the side of the screen or somewhere on the screen that says clean race bonus lost. That way we're not kind of wasting our time going through the event, and you know, if we want to, we can then make the choice to either restart and get the clean race bonus or carry on. At least then we get a better understanding of what is causing us to lose that clean race bonus. Look, say what you want, but credits do play a big part in this game, hence why they ended up monetizing them, to be quite honest. People need credits, and people want to play events and get that 50% bonus on top to make it worth their time. So having this clean race bonus would be a fantastic thing for pretty much all of the events. Some of them are very much obvious, but some not so much, and it would be nice to know exactly what's causing us to just lose that clean race bonus. Next up, I'm actually going to focus entirely on the online portion of the game, and I'm going to talk about daily races. They're a little bit tired at this point. This has been a system that's been in place since 2017, and whilst yes, it works great, most of the time it's enjoyable, sometimes, just sometimes, it feels very kind of missing that final touch. So what do I mean by this? Putting in an endurance daily race. This game is fantastic when you are running longer races in the game. Now, I believe it was pretty recently that there was the whole controversy, I think around Spa, I want to say, or one of the events where it went on for around about 40 minutes. And all of a sudden, Polyphony just changed it last minute. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So it's almost like they're scared of giving people longer races. But if that's the case, then you don't want your daily race C to be too lengthy, add a daily race D and make it a full-blown endurance race. I'm talking minimum half an hour to around about an hour. Add qualifying in there, obviously in the normal sense of going around doing your kind of qualifying time while the lobby timer ticks down, and give us a full-blown endurance race that makes use of not only the wicked day-night cycle that is in some of these tracks, maybe put in the weather in there and kind of spread it out through different points of a longer event, pit stops, fuel, tyre wear, make a proper endurance kind of focused daily race D. I think this would be a brilliant idea. I can see in the sense of maybe people will just kind of back out if they start having a bad race, and you might only end up with, let's say, 9 cars finishing. But let's be honest, if you're in the more, I guess, higher ranked lobbies where people generally take the game a bit more serious, you probably wouldn't see this. And I think a lot of people really want Gran Turismo to start focusing in the endurance side. So if you're not going to do it in kind of the single player version, do it where we can have a proper challenge where strategy is going to be key over a long-term race and not just outright pace. I think this would work very well for Gran Turismo. On top of that, I'm actually going to bring another quick point across. Multi-class. This car is brimming with different classes of car, and they are not actually categorized correctly. The Super Silhouette being classed as a Group 3 is rather quite ridiculous. The best way to actually do this would have been to kind of put mini classes in. So your Group 3 could be your typical GT3 machines, then you could have a different group like your Group 5, kind of Super Silhouettes, more classic, you know, kind of categorize them correctly so we can have a proper multi-class battle. Again, multi-class racing would be fantastic. I would absolutely love to see the likes of Group 1 cars going up with Group 3. You have your class position and your overall race position. Games have done this many times in the past, and it would be fantastic to see this implemented into GT7. So this one for me is a massive one, and that is Gran Turismo 7 and Polyphony having a proper community support. You know, for since the game's released, let's just say, people have been complaining, bringing up points that they want to see in the game, and it just falls on deaf ears. You know, most modern racing games, or really games in general, will give you a clear idea of where they want to go. A recent example for this is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. Each week they update their player base on what they're trying to resolve, where they're going with it. Even EA do it with the Formula 1 franchise and their racing games. You know, if they can do it, why can Polyphony not? Whilst it is extremely frustrating to see people just constantly just wanting to know what direction the game's going, to see if in the long term this game is for them. What are they working on? You know, where are they going with it? Are they going to fix certain things? The only time we ever really see Polyphony actually talk to anyone is every 9 months or so. They might reply to one of the World Series drivers, and that's it. It's just not good enough in this day and age. Many games rely on transparency through social media. Whilst you know, nobody expects them to just tell absolutely everything, there is some form of contact with the community, and you don't really feel that is there with Polyphony. It's a massive shame as well, because I feel like it is just so needed for people to kind of know where the game's going. People have been always kind of put in the dark in terms of the player base of Gran Turismo, because nobody really knows what Polyphony are going to do with this product, where they're heading, what are they working on, are they working to resolve certain things, you know, where are they going next, is there more stuff coming to the game? You know, it would just be kind of nice for a proper, I guess, community manager to be able to update the community and kind of raise the concerns with the rest of the Polyphony team of what their player base wants, what they're talking about, so they can go ahead and get on top of it. Or, you know what, even turn around and just say no. At least then we'd have clear answers about what Polyphony wants to do with Gran Turismo 7. So that's going to be it from me. That is my personal wish list. Leave your comments down below to let me know, and I will try and feature as many as I can within my community wish list video that will come in the coming days. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn those notifications on so you don't miss an upload from me, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Peace.